This year, Code N is looking back on 4 years of our Code N Award, and we wanted to take a chance to check in with some of our past winners and see how they're getting along, how their businesses are doing today, how their concept and their product has developed. So please join me in welcoming one of our winners from 2013, Daniela Schiffer of Changers.com. Daniela, it's great to have you here. Let's take a seat and chat about what you've been up to.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us, first of all, what is Changers.com for anyone who wasn't here back in 2013?
Of course. So with Changers, what we do is we have developed a mobile app that incentivizes employees and companies to behave in a more healthier and sustainable way. Meaning we give bonus points for people to just leave the car at home, cycle, walk more often, maybe don't take the elevator. And then, of course, also continue tracking other health activities. These can be nutrition or sports or medical preventions I have taken. And for each of these activities, I get bonus points. And for these bonus points, and I can redeem them for any kind of rewards that the company offers. And we do connect this. So basically what we say is I do something good for myself and for the environment. So we try to connect healthcare in the companies with the CSR. So for example, companies can offer a tool that for every 100 kilometers I have cycled, I can plant a tree. Or I can donate for a charity project that the company has chosen for.
Now, you were one of our winners in 2013 under the motto, Smart Solutions for Global Challenges. What has changed for you since winning? Did anything change?
Absolutely. I mean, we're called changers. That's so some would say it's a revolution. I would rather say it's an evolution. When we have started, and when we have won actually the Code N Award back then in 2013, I was a hardware producer. We have built a solar charger, a smart device that could track your energy production and rewarded you with bonus points for every green watt hour you have produced. And basically what we're doing now is we have just evolved into the topics of mobility and healthcare. The mechanics behind what we do actually remain the same.
And where do you go from here? How do you see the future for Changers.com?
Well, that as a startup has always two parts. So you have the imminent future, which is we are starting to, or we have already a couple of bigger clients. So right now it's all about sales process, about really coming back to DACH to develop our market in Europe. Mostly through the clients we already have. So it's a very organic growth we have. And then if you look into the future, so what we are actually working at is more a way of how do I earn my living in a world where there's no work or the hours I bring to the market as we know today. So how will people actually sustain themselves and what could be future models of this? And we think that the topic of my behavior, saving costs in a society, and then basically taking this opportunity costs and discounting them into today and paying people today for costs they will save in the future could be a possibility on how this could be solved. And this is something that we basically right now work on. Right now it's more a Trojan horse, so it's a motivation and a bonus system within companies, but that's basically the big picture.
Well, it's great to have you here today, you and your Trojan horse of Changers.com. Thank you very much. At this time, we want to bring up the rest of our panel on digital disruption, and we have a moderator for this panel. Sorry, I've lost my spot here. Let's bring up Dirk Lehmann. He is a coach and an entrepreneur. He's going to be moderating this next panel for you on digital disruption, how corporations and startups can face the digital challenge together. He'll also be joined by Raymond Chow of Daimler. Raymond, come on up. And Sasha Karimpour of Plug and Play Center. And Michael Reinertz of Vodafone. Welcome all of our panelists. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome everybody to this panel discussion focusing on how corporates and startups take on digital disruption together. I mean, if we look at the rapid progress that technology has made over the last couple of years, a lot of things have changed, a lot of areas are changing, and especially a lot of new achievements within the technological area are changing businesses and lifestyles on a daily basis. So I guess today, flexibility, fast adoption are crucial for the success of any enterprise. And one way for corporates to cope with this new complexity, I think, is to partner up with startups, because they're oftentimes much faster, more specialized than those corporations. And to look a little bit deeper into how these partnerships can work for both sides and how they can best be executed, I'm extremely proud to have an amazing panel with me today on stage that has plenty of experience around this topic. And with that, I would like to welcome Raymond Chow, Micah Jacob Reinhardt, and Daniel Schiffer. And I would like to give you guys the opportunity to quickly introduce yourself a little bit more.
Well, I have a high density of mics over here. I'm just going to share them.
Goes one there.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Michael Reinhardt. I'm heading the innovation department at Vodafone Germany. We are quite new. We've been set up about half a year ago, which does not mean that there wasn't any innovation at Vodafone before, but we wanted to cluster the topic a little bit. We have two additional units within the department that are covering the open innovation and the closed innovation part, and my team that is covering open innovation is also responsible for the whole cooperations that we do with startups.
Perfect.
Raymond Chow from Daimler AG. I'm from the area Business Innovation. This unit was set up under the chairman about 8 years ago to look into new business models. So beyond stamping and pressing metal, what are the business units, business models we can set up to generate revenues? Some examples out of this unit are, for example, Car2Go or Movil. And so already there we have experience working with startups, and my latest project, which I brought, is a startup Autobahn. So we try to set up an ecosystem for startups in Stuttgart, and this is pretty exciting right now.
Well, I guess I've already talked enough, so I'm just going to pass the mic to you.
Thank you. I'm Sasha. I'm with Plug and Play. We are a leading global innovation platform. We have 17 locations in the world. We have 9 themed acceleration verticals, we call them, which we run in Silicon Valley and across our locations, including mobility, new material and packaging, health, fintech, insurance, IoT, and more. And together with Daimler in Stuttgart, we started this year our project Startup Autobahn, and yeah, we're quite excited about that.
Great. Sasha, one question for you. I mean, everybody nowadays is talking about digital disruption as like the buzzword of the tech scene. Mm-hmm. What does it actually mean to you, the word digital disruption?
Okay, I believe it goes on two levels, that digital disruption. Number one, with incremental innovation of current business processes. For example, in the banking industry, we have this blockchain right now, which is changing current processes in both insurances and with banks dramatically, but also other disruptive business models like shared economy in the autonomous cars.
Thank you. Michael, I'd love to get a corporate view on that topic as well. Digital disruption, how do you see that?
I mean, speaking from a telco point of view, for sure, WhatsApp was one of the disruptions that we just faced recently, meaning that at least our SMS numbers have been going down constantly for the past few years. Digital disruption means for us a change in the way how our customers communicate and how we find a spot here. It also means for us a change in the way our customers add value, especially in the enterprise segment. So M2M is something that we are driving here in order to foster that change and disruption. On the other hand, as said, the whole topic of autonomous driving and the way how an intelligent communication network adds value here is something where we want to find our spot in the digital disruption happening there. And at last, entertainment. I mean, if you look at the numbers that have been recently published, how people below 20 are changing their way of media consumption, and also the whole advertising business, how it is being affected when there is no live TV anymore, but everyone's using on demand. So that's something that we have a close look at and see how we as a telco can integrate ourselves into that value chain.
Sounds interesting. Raymond, I'd love to get your view on that as well. I'm sure companies like Daimler or others, you can talk in broad industries if you want to, face a lot of challenges with digital disruption. What is your take on that?
I was thinking there are two topics on this one. Number one is, of course, the car itself. I mean, it's packed with electronics and digital content, so it's getting more and more looking at autonomous driving, looking at the issues about security, about health issues in the car. So it's all over the place where a lot of technology is going right to the car. Another part, of course, also you look into new business models. So you mentioned about shared economy. So again, as a founder of Car2Go, this unit, and also from Daimler, we're looking from individual driving in S-Class, but also using Car2Go. It's all over the place. We're looking. So we need to address customers, right? Of sharing, of course, this is a vertical we need to look into.
I'm glad that you mentioned the idea of startups, because now we looked at the corporate side, and I would like to switch over to the startup side as well. Daniela, startups are, I guess, very different than corporates in many ways. They work different, they organize themselves differently. From your perspective, what are actually advantages that turn out of that, but maybe also challenges that startups are facing because they're so different in corporates?
I think that our biggest advantage is that we are living in a constant fear of, oh my God, we're going to die. This means that there is a very, very high perception on that we need to move, that we need to keep active, that we need to look for what to do. So maybe some of the corporations also have this feeling, but we as a startup, we lack the big cushion on which we can lay back. This means that all this adrenaline this is causing is actually leading to a, if you guide it rightly, let's put it that way, it can really lead to a lot of innovation. So it's more or less fear that drives us. It's a good thing, I guess. A lot of religions have come out of that, so it's not the worst driver. I think that we have also smaller processes, so we can develop much faster. Most of the startups, somehow, even if they grow up to being 200,000 or even more people, they try to keep this culture of breaking things, of going out, of actually being able to make mistakes. But sometimes in corporations, they have lost this at some time. I think that's the advantages, and then of course the disadvantages is exactly the same. We have two resources. One is money, the other is time. And there's always a lack of it. So it's either one of them or it's both. So you have this constant drive of actually having to look at it. And that's not only like a startup like us with 15 people where you have also always little resources, but this can also be for startups that are bigger, that actually have also had potential like billions of fundings, and at some point they have to let go of hundreds of people because the business they have is not evolving. So this is not a matter of size, this is a matter of how we look at the business and how we evolve it.
Well, I guess those challenges and advantages make the whole thing very exciting. Raymond, I'm sure you're also dealing constantly with startups in your job. I'd like to get your view from your perspective from the corporate side. What are advantages that startups have, but maybe also specific challenges that make them different?
Well, of course, I think the whole industry is looking for startups, or there's a kind of war for startups going out there. Yeah, obviously there are different reasons why a corporation wants to interact with startups. Number one, it's also a way of getting technology, so it's front-loading of technology, because things do move very quickly. Of course, we have our treasured tier 1, tier 2 suppliers, but in the end, a small startup might come up with something in the digitalized world which can move very quickly. And especially with funding nowadays, which is globally, these small startups can get funding very quickly. So A, it's technology front-loading. B is also, as mentioned before, looking at different business models, how to interact with customers. So I think there is a way of disruption happening, car ownership, and what's all happening in this whole cloud. So to work together with startups, I think is a way also how we can work together and also find different ways of delivering new services. And of course, also one area is to look into a kind of investment, right? I mean, nowadays startups can become very significant, and if you are in early, then that can happen quite nicely.
I'm sure all the startups in the room are happy about hearing about investment opportunities. Sasha, coming from Plug and Play, you probably have a great view as well on both sides, corporates and startups. When you look at the digital transformation, what do you think is the role of startups and corporates in this whole process?
Okay, so we are an innovation platform, but in our core we are investors. So we invest in about 50% of the startups which are going through our acceleration programs. So with that said, we're looking for new technologies which are either game changers in the way how current processes are being done. So again, we call that incremental innovation. We're looking at teams which have a unique technology, which have a scalable model, which can monetize their idea really well, who think big, very important. Coming from the American side, the sky is the limit. And most importantly, a team which is able to, in a very short amount of time, to be able to scale the company. Yeah, and then in our network, we work together with a lot of corporations. We have about 125 corporate members, and with which we engage on a very deep level, and for whom we find relevant new technologies. So from the corporate side, we are looking for a corporate which number one is sponsored on the C level. We are looking for a corporate who can open up resources internally, who can engage with the startups, to find in relevant business units key people to help the startups to thrive.
Perfect. Michael, I'd like to get a corporate view as well on this one. So looking at digital transformation, where do you see the role of corporate and the one of a startup?
I like the concept of fear that Daniela mentioned. For us, it's a different thing. It's not the fear of being there or being not there. It's more the fear of having change and having to adapt to the change, and also fear of changing the mindset because of all the processes and all the regulations that have been within corporations, like, for example, Vodafone, where we are also only a local subsidiary with a group structure that imposes certain structure and processes on us as well. It's quite hard to move as fast. And I once said, we are the tanker and the startups are the little speedboats that go around us, and we need to have a flexibility in the mindset of the people also working from within the corporate to actively engage in startups. And I think that's the biggest topic that you need to solve first, is changing the mindset from within the company, how to deal with startups and how to work together before engaging, because otherwise I see that both sides will have problems to adapt. And I mean, we've been set up just recently, but I think we have some good proof points where we found that leaving aside those existing processes and going more or less with the elbows into the doors is a better way, also with a corporate one. So it's a lot of changing mindset from within the big ones.
Yeah, I think it can be a big advantage if you increase the speed internally just by working with startups. Raymond, I'm sure you guys have also had some experience actually working with startups. Do you have any specific challenges that come to your mind that you were encountering and special strategies that you took to overcome them?
I think Michael mentioned already a number of them. I mean, this is about a cultural change. That's a pretty fluffy word, but if you come to reality, then it really becomes pretty tough. I mean, it takes for us 6 to 7 years to develop an S-class, so you can see that there are pretty solid processes behind that to involve a lot of people. That, in contrary, of course, then with a startup speed is very different, right? I mean, so you can see the culture clash already written down there. Of course, also, and coming from business innovation, we have a similar DNA where we try to innovate and we try to iterate quickly, fail fast. Well, topic failure within Swabia, Schwabenländle, is a topic, right? So you're talking about this where the best or nothing. So you have a kind of conflict where how do you allow failure to happen? How do you allow also this kind of mindset to happen? So that is not easy. That is for sure a challenge. Yeah. But again, I think interaction with startups is therefore very important to bring the corporate people together with the startups and to learn from each other. I think this is very important and very useful and very healthy.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. So now we looked at the challenges, but let's take maybe a little bit more of a positive approach and think about how actually a successful corporation could look like. Daniela, with a startup background, what actually makes, from your perspective, a successful collaboration between a startup and a corporate?
Well, we are right now talking to a lot of different corporations, and I think what is interesting from our perspective is to see the different cultures in the different companies and what actually works and what not. So I have this outside perspective. I'm talking to companies from 10,000 employees to 500,000 employees. To employ our tool, which actually is a pretty cool thing if you think about it. And I sometimes think, like, are they aware that they're talking to a small company like we are? But anyway, so I think this is also talking about digital disruption. This is with fairly little resources, you all of a sudden are able to go and compete with the big ones. And this is something that is really interesting. Coming back to the topic, I think it's a learning process on both sides, and both sides have certain things they have to understand and learn, and they have to adapt the process for this. So from a startup perspective, I need to understand how an organization, how a corporation works, how the decision processes are being done. And I need to be able to prepare my materials in a way that the corporation can process it. So if I'm a total mess, and if I don't know how to deliver certain papers, certain information, certain legal stuff, the process is going to take forever. It's taking long enough already like that, but this is from a startup, and I need to calculate in my business model. I need to calculate that it can take 6 to 12 months to talk to a corporation. That's how it is. So only because I have this cool product, it's not going to change. Sometimes it does, but it's not the case. So I really need to have this in mind. From a corporate perspective, for us, actually, it's crucial to whom we talk to. For us, it's the most important thing is to find the right person within the company who is willing to go through with us, to invest the time, and to maybe also sometimes find the little sneaks in the rules. So, for example, we had somebody who said, is it okay for you if you don't sign a 3 years contract, but actually we sign only for 6 months now, then our legal year ends, so I don't have to go through this whole process, and we can split it and we can be faster. So this was something that for us, of course, is very interesting, because the sooner I sign a contract, the sooner I actually have bank on the cash, the better. What else? I think one thing which we also we're facing a lot is that we were talking to people who may have a position where it says VP or head off, but they actually have no budget. So they can't decide anything at the end, because it's somebody else who has to sign off that they can actually spend even €1. So this might be also interesting for corporations that they find or they give smaller budget. It doesn't have to be like the million part. It can be just 10K here, 20K there, and you can already start working in an easier way. Failure, of course, also this is a big issue. That's also, I think, something that with what we have right now, it's already pretty known. It's a concept that is well learned, so we don't have this problem that we have to introduce something completely new. But we have heard of people who have maybe lost their position or have been thrown back in their career because they have ventured into supporting something that was maybe not that successful, and it drew back on them personally. And this is something that it's not going to change easily, but these are, I think, the main points within corporations that need to change.
Yeah, I can totally see the challenge of finding one correct contact person within 200,000 people.
A lot of cold calls, yeah.
That's part of the game, I guess. Sasha, I think you probably have seen at Plug and Play a lot of collaborations between corporates and startups. I'd love to get your view what actually makes up a successful collaboration.
Sure. So you guys said a lot already, so I'm carrying on. So you have to be open for innovation, number one, like Michael said. You can't expect that every cooperation is going to be a success. Raymond, thank you. And you have to look for the right contact people in the organization who are able to enable a successful engagement, and whatever you're looking for, also investments maybe are able to deliver it to you. Also, these are all like key factors. It's very important, all of them. Also, I think a lot of corporations, they think, we must be, if it's a new technology, we want it for ourselves. It's supposed to be exclusive for us. I hear that a lot, especially here in Swabia. It's not how a startup eventually is going to become successful if it's over the hub of one company. So strategic thinking is good, but you have to think a little bit out of the box. And if you are trying to put it under your hub in your corporation and control it, a similar startup will pop up, and other corporations will work with them. So you have to try to work with the startup for the startup to be successful, to reach its ultimate goal, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned before that Plug and Play connects investors, startups, corporates alike. Yes. Maybe a little tough question for you. When you look at digital transformation, why does this process actually need a platform like Plug and Play?
Yeah, so I think most important, for the startups as well as for the corporations, in our platform, it's the corporations which actually dictate the technology interest of the acceleration vertical. So our scouting process is through our global network, large global network. We have about 6,000 startups in our network, 125 corporations. We work with 180 VCs. They are all influencing this, what we call a filtering process, to find the most relevant startups who can work with corporations. So this helps the startups because we're able to match them to the right corporations, to the right people within the corporations. And it helps the corporations finding the most relevant startups or technologies which they can implement. So we're kind of matchmakers. And For the VCs, we are doing through our corporate partners who are reviewing those startups or technologies, kind of like a due diligence process. So the VCs love us, the startups love us, the corporations love us. It's a kind of a win-win-win situation.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Michael, Vodafone is interacting with a lot of startups to shape, really, as you mentioned before, the future of telecommunications. You have, for example, the Vodafone Startup Power Team that supports startups in many different ways. Can you maybe give us a particular case from the past where you really benefited from the collaboration with a startup?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we identify startups, we try to see whether they fit in any way into our value chain, both on the consumer part as well as also on the enterprise part. We just recently had 2 cases, or even more cases, that we found a startup to be a valid partner for each of those segments. For example, earlier this year, we launched together with a startup in Munich named Bragi, the Dash, the first hearable, which was an exclusive cooperation as a mobile network operator that we had in Germany and had it in our stores, and also had it in our online store. This means the 2 R's we are trying to implement here. We give them reach, they give us revenue. So that's something where we try to find a common ground and a seeding ground to lift them up. So our strategy is not to invest any money directly, but our strategy is to give a platform. We have our network, not only in a technical sense, but also in a broader sense as a global company to give them access also to other markets where we operate in. We have our know-how in doing business for many years in the telco sector, which we can supply. We also give a technical testing platform. We have the Vodafone Innovation Park in Düsseldorf, which is by far the largest technical testing center for telecommunication services, where startups can test with hardware, but also see whether their apps are strong enough to survive big access. And we have the sales capillarity with more than 1,500 outlets in Germany alone to really give them reach. That was on the consumer side. On the more enterprise or B2B side, we have a startup called AirRace, which is a spin-off also of in Dresden, from the TU Dresden, where we use their technology to increase the performance of our network. So trying to get benefit on a B2B aspect as well. So we try to engage in very different ways here.
I like the fact that you're also integrating the university part into the whole challenge. Daniela, you mentioned before that as a startup, you already have plenty of experience working with corporates. When you compare this whole experience maybe with working with other partners, working with other clients, do you see any specific differences there, challenges, advantages from the past, what you've experienced?
Well, I mean, the biggest advantage, of course, is if you are working with a big corporation, is the reach, is the number of people you can contact or whatever. That's also why we chose the path of not going directly B2C, but B2B2C. So we are actually using corporations as vehicles to contact persons in an already closed environment and network. So this is for us the biggest, or the one of the main reasons why we are talking to companies in the first place and offering them our services. We have seen that we can scale the fastest. The challenges, I think I already went into that, so that I don't really have to expand. Actually, when trying to work with cities, it's even worse. It's much worse. So we were talking with a couple of municipalities, and it's a total disaster. So they basically, you call them, and it's 2015, and they go like, oh, actually we have this project in 2017. And you go like, oh my God, I hope I'm still going to be around at that time. So this was absolutely no pass, even though I think this is really interesting, I would really love to work with municipalities. It's right now, as in the state and where we are, it's really challenging. Talking to corporation, actually they're facing the same challenges or similar challenges. From our experience, again, it's about it was very interesting to see how different the processes can be, how different the culture can be within the company. So one process maybe in one company only takes 1 or 2 people to sign off. With one company we are talking right now, I think it's the 3rd presentation we have, and now they have asked us because the CEO wants to see another presentation, he wants to see it live, so we might have to go there again. And then you just go like, Christ Jesus, guys. So it really is, and sometimes I just think like, are they doing all their business like that? So it's like, how are they coming to any conclusion like in a reasonable time? So it's really interesting to see this and to learn from it also. And so we had, and then again, we have very positive examples, especially outside of Germany, of course. That is something that I have to say that we're in 3 or 4 weeks, we have in the UK, we had one company onboarded H&M and they were totally happy. Here I have to talk to the unions and to the data security, etc. And so basically for us, it's really interesting to be able to sell and say we are applying to highest German security standards, blah, blah, and everybody says, oh, God, that's actually a good selling point. But it's hard to do this in Germany.
Well, I like the message that maybe also for German companies it's interesting to look outside in other markets, how corporates deal with that, if you had a more positive experience with that.
Apparently, yes.
That's a good thing. Raymond, Startup Autobahn, we've heard about it before, just recently started the selection of the 2nd round. I think one thing that is probably interesting for everybody to know is what was actually the problem within the company that led to initiating the entire program?
I wouldn't say as a problem. Again, I think the access to startups is a challenge for all corporates. We experienced that there are the big hotspots around, like Berlin and Silicon Valley. Munich is also developing nicely, but Stuttgart so far was not really on the map for startups. Yeah, so this was an issue. So we have a lot of corporate tourism going on to those hotspots. The question is this sustainable? So it's good to have top level going and seeing what's happening. That's very important to get the support. But then on a working level, how to get that connection going, sustainable. So that was the reason why I said, okay, if the profit doesn't come to the mountain, then bring the mountain to the profit. So let's start up a hub in Stuttgart. And again, what is the theme we have to look for? We're looking for future of mobility for production 4.0 because we believe that we can offer within Daimler, but also the network around Stuttgart, which is very rich on tier 2 and tier 1 suppliers, is the creator of automotive. We can offer a lot to the startups in this field. So I think this was the architecture of putting up Startup Autobahn together. And then we reached also out to plug and play because we also said, okay, do it yourself or get in with a partner who has experience, who has got a reputation also in the startup world. So for Daimler, we said we would like to work together with Plug and Play, a renowned partner out of Silicon Valley, to bring a little bit spirit also to Stuttgart.
Yeah, you mentioned the part of like getting as much exposure to startups as possible. Michael, you're partner of the Coden corporate membership. How does this membership actually help you with your unit, with the digital disruption transformation process?
I mean, as said, we are not only responsible for startups, but for innovation in general, meaning, as earlier said in my introduction, that we're also taking care of all the innovation that is going on within the company. So startups is one part where we have resources, but we have not never-ending resources, which means we need a partner that is dedicated to creating additional value in that sense and providing extra information, giving us more or less an already filtered picture of interesting startups that we could work together. So we're having regular calls and updates which give us insights on the fields that we specified to have the analysis, and then my team has a closer look into each and every of the topics that are on the proposal list.
Yeah. I mean, we heard now automotive, telecommunications side. Sasha, maybe another question for you. When you look at the European landscape, all different industries, also with the view from Plug and Play, do any specific industries come to your mind, since I guess we have also a lot of corporate members in the audience that could actually do a lot more with corporate startup collaboration, where there's a little bit potential?
Yep, everybody. Yeah. So, and I think in all industry, that's why we have many different platforms. There will be change of the way we're doing business in the next 10 to 15 years, at least dramatic change. So I'm based now in Stuttgart with Startup Autobahn, but I'm going back almost on a monthly basis to Silicon Valley. And every time I'm going back to Silicon Valley, I see, oh, there's something new, something has changed, and people are moving in such a fast pace there. If you haven't been there, so the want to be a part of it, you know, like there's Swabians or Germans, they're very good in planning generally, but you can't have an innovation, you can't have a perfect plan. You at some point you just have to start doing something, and things will come, you will learn, and and go from there.
Since we have probably also a lot of startups in the audience, I would have one last question for you, Daniela. From your experience of working with corporates, are there like 2 or 3 things, advice you'd love to give to startups that they should consider when you work with a corporate?
Never take no for granted. No, I really mean it. So we had several corporations where we talked to one person, and then they were like, no, they're not interested, or not today, or I don't know what. And then we tried to find either another department or another person within the department and start talking to them, and all of a sudden, all doors were open. So again, crucial, whom do you talk to? So this person really needs to want to take them or have an agenda with you. And then be very patient. Don't be frustrated if people say, oh, this year I think it's not going to happen, it's going to be next year. This is normal. And be very tenacious and have as many people as possible doing cold calls. So right now I have 4 students, sometimes even more, it depends a little bit, it's fluctuating, like always with students, working students who do nothing else than call people, companies. And this is the best thing we can do. So this is the best way I can imagine spending money in marketing and sales, to just reach out and try to continuously, and if they get a no, then it's not a lost deal, but then they have, their job is to find another person.
Because you have to be patient when you want to break through those walls that some corporates have.
You have to be stubborn, yes.
That's okay. Well, we're unfortunately almost out of time, but I would love to give every one of you guys a chance. If there's like one advice, one thing you would like the audience to remember, this is your chance. One shout out to the group as a closing statement. Raymond, you want to kick it off?
Oh, sure. Join Startup Autobahn. So check our website. Yeah, we are an open innovation platform for corporates, for startups. Apply for it and come to Stuttgart.
I think, and listening to Daniela, it's clear that there is a clear difference between the startup and the corporate world. And I think it's good also for the startups to know. And if you take an example from music, Vodafone would be like the contemporary orchestra, having their notes on the table and playing the music as it's written. And if we look at the startup, it might be a jazz band. I think if you take that, both can work together and give some good sound. You just need to find the right rhythm to work together.
That's a great example. From you?
Well, actually, I think we are in times where we are facing immense challenges. We're looking into ever-eldering generations. We're looking into climate change, etc. So I'm really, really looking forward to getting to know more and more companies, and also seeing the big players invest their time into finding great solutions so that we can actually make it.
Yeah. Again, I think no fear. You have to engage with as many parties on the innovation platform as possible. Not only finding the right startups, which sometimes they're earlier stage, sometimes they're later stage. Bigger companies in general like to work with later stage companies to implement the technologies faster and get more out of them. But also engage with venture capitalists, get their opinions, and also you learn a lot from other corporations. So very important part is to speak with other corporations which are facing similar problems like you. And that's what we are trying to build in Stuttgart, kind of copying the model what we have in Silicon Valley. It's having all important parties in one platform together and talking with each other, learning from each other, and even doing projects together. So as Raymond mentioned, Startup Autobahn, it's a neutral platform. We are trying to connect many parties, and Daimler also is looking forward to include other partners who will have the same rights on the platform as Daimler does. Without the involvement of other corporations, it's not going to be a success, very clearly said. But we're just starting, so it's a good opportunity to jump on and hope to see you soon in one of our events.
That sounds good. Well, I think we saw that digital disruption is a challenge, but if you tackle it together, it can be a great opportunity for both sides. With that, I'd like to thank the panel for taking out your time, sharing your experience. I hope you all had some great takeaways from this conversation, and I hope you all enjoy remaining in your new festival, and thanks again for everyone.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dirk, and thank you to our panelists for your ideas on how established companies and startups can begin working together. Our next topic